Welcome, everybody. I will apologize right up front. I lost my voice. A certain other member of our panel lost his voice last week, and I think I caught it. So, you know who I'm talking about. So there's something going around. But the hearing will now come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chair be authorized to declare our recess at any time. I think we're safe, Daniel. I ask unanimous consent to include in the record testimony from Mike Garcia involving a pay raise. So without objection, so ordered. Go down here. Okay. Let me welcome everyone to today's Quality of Life panel. I want to thank our colleagues for providing testimony. I appreciate you both. We may have a third member here soon. I look forward to hearing your perspective on the issues this panel has been chartered to consider. Service members and their families make untold sacrifices to protect this nation. Now, I'm looking at two veterans I'm speaking to, and a third one's another veteran, and I am one too. So we know we have our hearts on this. They should not have to sacrifice nor be concerned with their basic necessities such as food, living conditions, access to health care, basic quality of life due to their military service. These men and women deserve better. Over the past 6 months, this panel has heard from military spouses regarding the struggles of obtaining child care and maintaining employment due to multiple military moves. We've heard from Government Accountability Office about the abhorrent condition of unaccompanied housing. We talked to military compensation experts about the adequacy of junior enlisted pay. Throughout these events, we have found that although the department has done some work to improve service members' quality of life, significant gaps remain. As the panel begins to consider legislative recommendations for the House Armed Services Committee, Military Personnel Subcommittee, I very much look forward to hearing from our colleagues about concerns they are hearing from their constituents. I want to welcome our witnesses. We got Representative Derek Van Orden, also Representative Mike Garcia, and hopefully soon Representative Salud Carbajal. Before we go further, I'd like to allow Ranking Member Houlihan a few minutes to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since last June, this bipartisan panel has diligently engaged with service members, with spouses, advocacy groups, the Department of Defense officials, and leaders across our military services on ways to improve pay and compensation, housing, child care, spouse employment, and health care. By taking time to listen to these various stakeholders, we've identified best practices as well as gaps in how the department and the services are meeting the needs of service members and their families. This hearing affords us a chance to hear from our own colleagues who will share with us how their experiences and their constituents' experiences have shaped what they see as opportunities to improve the quality of life of those who currently serve us today. As the panel develops its recommendations, we will take into account the very true adage that we recruit the service member, but we retain the family. And it is the quality of life issues that are often the deciding factor when somebody is either considering joining the military service or remaining on active duty. Lastly, I do want to thank my colleagues on the panel who have been very engaged in all of our briefings and hearings, as well as the panel's chair, Mr. Bacon, again, for encouraging such bipartisanship throughout this entire process. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Houlihan, and your voice is sharper than mine. I'll give you that. And this has been a bipartisan effort. It's been a great team trying to solve the needs for our men and women in the military and their families. So with that, I'd like to recognize Representative Van Orden for 5 minutes, otherwise known as DVO. Fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to personally thank you for losing your voice. That was Mike. I appreciate very much coming here to be able to speak about something that's near and dear to my heart, the lack of appropriate compensation for our enlisted folks. And however, I want to preface all these comments with this, and unfortunately, due to the lack of leadership of the Biden administration and the Department of Defense, we're experiencing a crisis in confidence from those willing to join an all-volunteer force. After witnessing the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, where I have 2 combat deployments, and the projection of strategic weakness, which has led the world to become a much more dangerous place, I am concerned that even if this Congress does authorize a pay raise for the men and women, commiserate with their sacrifice, the morale, recruiting levels, quality of life, and the quality of life of our service members will not return until we have a strong leadership back in the executive branch, meaning a competent commander-in-chief. I'm a 26-year veteran of the United States Navy. Over 22 of those, I served as a Navy SEAL. I spent approximately 16 years of my marriage away from home in training in combat. I've had over 50 of my friends killed in combat, and as of with Mike Day, I've had 21 of my friends commit suicide. And I'm coming here to testify for those that can't speak and for our junior enlisted. I was literally being shot at by various terrorist organizations as my wife was standing in a checkout line in a grocery store handing people coupons for WIC to get milk and cheese to feed my children. And I just think you cannot square that circle. Our men and women are sacrificing their time, something you never get back, some of their lives, and our families are living below the poverty line. And that's not okay. We spend trillions of dollars on everything you can possibly imagine, and we forget that nothing works without the person. This conversation around military compensation and benefits is critical because we are facing recruiting challenges with an all-voluntary force. And I want to highlight some stuff for you, just to put this into perspective for people who do not have experience with the military. Our junior enlisted, that's the E1 to E4, on average, if you did an hourly salary for them, it'd be about $11 an hour. Let's juxtapose that with working at Quick Trip, which is essentially a Midwestern 7-Eleven. It's headquartered in my district. You start at Quick Trip at $15+ an hour. You have full medical coverage, including clinics that they run, and you have a 401k plan. At Train Technologies, they'll pay for your training at a technical college. You're going to start at about $23 an hour with full benefits. And those job skills at Train, they translate into something that you can take anywhere with you. Unlike killing terrorists, that's a pretty focused line of work, and hopefully you're only doing that as a member of the government. So these people are getting this training and compensation, and they can move around the country at will. They don't have to leave their families. They don't have to worry about getting shot at, and they sure as hell don't have to worry about their wife standing in line at a checkout stand handing in WIC coupons. So this has just got to stop. The number one soft maxim is men are more important than machines. Humans are more important than hardware. And I'm asking you humbly, understanding that there are men and women today who are standing with a weapon in their hand, and they are wearing body armor, and they are protecting us from the savages that live around the world that want to see us dead simply because we're Americans. So, again, I'm imploring you, take this as seriously as you are and assert yourself and right this very easily correctable wrong. Again, I want to thank you very much for your bipartisan work on this matter. I'd ask that God bless you and your families. God bless the United States of America and our troops that are watching over us as we sleep. And with that, I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Van Orten. Derek, before I recognize Mike Garcia, I want to let you know we do take this serious. We know this is a number one issue, that we got to adjust compensation for our junior enlisted. And so thank you. You're reaffirming why it's so important. Yep. I'm grateful.
Mr. Chairman the rest of the committee, I just want to thank you, Ranking Member. I know you're taking it seriously. I wouldn't be here if I thought I was wasting my time. And if there's any way I can ever help you at all, I'm at your disposal.
We appreciate your testimony. With that, Mr. Garcia, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I realize it's not lost on me that everyone in this room today is a veteran. Thank you for your all service. I also want to commend my friend Salud Carbajal, who, despite being the last one to show up to this hearing today, is a good Marine. And he and I actually wrote together the Spouse Licensing Relief Act that was actually signed into law by President Biden last January, January 23. This gives wives of active duty members, husbands of active duty members, reciprocity across state lines for their professional licenses. So it shows that if we come together to solve these problems, especially for our enlisted troops as a bipartisan organization, we can actually get it done, and the two of us are very proud of that legislation. Thank you for your commitment to have these conversations on pay. As a former division officer, as a former combat naval aviator in charge of 50 to 60 enlisted troops, sailors aboard my squadron and my aircraft carrier, this is something I saw firsthand. I saw my sailors, a third of them qualify for food stamps, a third of them below the poverty line. And I want to echo the sentiment that the most important weapon system in our inventory, DoD-wide, are our people, and especially our junior enlisted, the E1 through E6. So this is This is why I have written these compensation bills to adjust pay for our junior enlisted, the E1s through E6. I know this panel has been waiting for the QRMC, the quadrennial review of military compensation studies, to come back. That has, I think, an interim review that's come back, and it's validating some of this. So I want to talk about the bills that I've written in the past, as well as the language that I wrote in the House Appropriations Committee for Defense Subcommittee that will be coming up here on a vote here shortly. To put things in perspective, the starting salary for a junior enlisted is about $12 an hour. In California, starting salary for an in-and-out worker is about $20 to $22 an hour. So adjusting the pay table so that the floor starts at $15 an hour, which is what my HAC-D language does with a $2,600 a month pay salary for an E1, puts them about $15 an hour. It's still not enough, in my opinion. We can't do too much for our junior enlisted troops. Inflation over the last 3 years is 19.3% cumulative. The pay raise that we have given our troops in the NDAA and appropriated through the appropes process sums up to 16.4%. So as legislators, we have actually aggravated the deficit problem in the households of our junior enlisted by about 3%. So we're moving in the wrong direction. It takes 3 promotions, as you can tell on the tables behind me here on this side. It's not until you are basically promoted 3 times and serve more than 4 years do you actually get to the salary of a fast food worker at $15 an hour with the FY23 pay table. In 2021, I testified in front of the services on HAC-D, and I was told there was no recruitment and retention problem. I was appalled that they made that assertion, but the Army missed recruiting by 14,000, the Navy 7,000, the Air Force 3,000, and all combined with reserves, we missed our recruiting numbers by 40,000. So my text in the HAC-D bill, which is coming up on a vote here very shortly, is effectively this pay table behind me, taking this pay table from here, starting at $1,900 a month for an E1, to here, starting at $2,600 a month for an E1, and it raises the pay raise up all the way through E6, and you can see E6 above 8 years ends up at the same spot. So we are raising the floor, compressing the pay table. I personally wrote this so that I know that there's no pay inversion. There is compression, but I think that the enlisted will be okay with that as long as they are getting paid these higher levels. A good friend of mine, Captain Chris Wilson, wrote an op-ed that talks about the fact that actually this gets worse for their troops when they go on deployment. When they go on deployment, they actually lose some of their food subsidies. Captain Chris Wilson, U.S. Army, he's commander of Bravo Company, 12th Infantry, 2nd Brigade, and he's in charge of 139 soldiers. And he says that basically when we go on deployment, our junior enlisted actually make less because we lose some of our meal stipends. Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Hunea, who I would never argue with, says pay and compensation reform is going to be one of those big problems that we need to start today. The only thing I would say he's wrong about is that we should have started yesterday, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, before we had this retention problem. And I think focusing on the pay is one of the facets that you all are chartered to look at, but raising the floor on this base pay is absolutely essential. And I would like the board members to read the text that I have in the HAC-D bill. It's sitting in front of you. It's got the pay table that I rewrote. I am helping you by literally creating the document that hopefully the Pentagon can adopt. As an appropriator who sits on HAC-D, I will do everything to make sure that we get the money to support the adoption of that pay table. And I'll end with this, that the utilization of bonuses are not bad things, but they are not the cure-all. We should allow the bonuses to continue to be used to address shortfalls in certain communities or to incentivize people to recruit and to stay in certain communities, certain MOSs. But bonuses alone will fail, and we can't afford to pay that amount of the bill that would come with a bonus. So on behalf of the 750,000 junior enlisted folks that would be affected by this pay raise that I have written, I am imploring you, I'm begging you to adopt it into the next year's NDAA. I know it was in last year's NDAA before it went to conference. I appreciate that. We're going to try to get it in the HAC-D bill. But these folks deserve to be above the poverty line. They deserve to be off food stamps. And there's not enough that we can pay them, but happy to answer any questions and By the way, I'm not claiming I have the 100% right answer with these pay tables, but I think I'm in the right coordinate system, and combined with other housing and other things you guys are looking at, I think we can get to a good solution for especially our junior enlisted. So thank you for the opportunity. I yield.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia. And I got to tell you, it's very well thought out. I appreciate all the brain bites that went into this. So we're going to give it a good review, and I think we're going to be going somewhat down this path. So I really like what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With that, my friend Congressman Carbajal, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the good work that Representative Garcia is doing on this issue. I was a little bit late because I thought I'd give the Air Force and the Navy a win for a change. Being the Marine Corps is usually on top of things. With that, let me just say that a lot has been raised about the regrettable situation of many of our enlisted that have to resort to our safety net programs, WIC and other type of programs like that. But it also reminds us that those programs are so important to keep going, and that we pass and must move forward for that circumstance where until we fix this pay scale, we need to make sure that we continue to provide that safety net for all food insecure Americans. Thank you, Chairman Bacon and Ranking Member Houlihan and the rest of the task force subcommittee for holding this hearing today. I commend you all for your leadership and work as part of this panel since its creation, and I look forward to the recommendations that will come from it. I'm a proud Marine, an enlisted Marine, having served 8 years in the reserves. This is my 8th year serving in Congress and on the Armed Services Committee, which has given me a great perspective on the great things and good things that DoD does for the quality of life of our service members, but also in the areas where we need to address. When I think about how to improve the quality of life of our service members, 2 things come to mind: pay differential between enlisted and officers, and child care access and affordability. I know my good friend and chairman of this panel, Mr. Bacon, along with Representative Garcia, who just spoke, are already working on this important first issue. So I will only touch on it slightly. The pay gap between enlisted and officers is concerning, especially for junior enlisted. I know this committee has worked hard to deliver pay increases in the last few years, but we need to do more for junior enlisted. In your report to the Military Personnel Subcommittee, I urge you to prioritize this disparity. Without any actions on it, we will continue to struggle as a nation to meet recruiting goals and potentially create retention problems, or should I say, exacerbate retention problems. Nationwide, there are a lack of child care options, and costs are unaffordable, and wait lists are months long. This is negatively impacting our service members, not just in the day-to-day productivity, but also their morale, as we heard it from senior enlisted leaders last week. Part of the affordability issue is directly related to the pay issue I just discussed. However, that is not the only concern. We need DoD to act more swiftly on this growing issue. For example, DoD is working to increase staff recruitment and retention for child care development centers. As a way to improve recruitment and retention at CDCs, in the fiscal year 2023 NDAA, Congress gave the DoD the authority to discount fees for civilian child care development center employees whose children are enrolled. Under this authority, DoD could offer discounts of up to 100%. But as of this year, the military departments are still in the process of establishing policies and implementing the Child Care Employee Discount Program. The House passed fiscal year 2024 NDAA included a provision that would have required the DoD to implement this 100% discount, but was taken out during conference negotiations. This should signal to the DoD that this is an issue Congress is paying attention to. Military families should not need to worry how they are going to find or afford child care. In this panel's report, I encourage imploring the DoD to use their existing authorities to alleviate this issue and to work with Congress where they need new authorities or funding. Quality of life issues are not just morale issues, they are also recruitment issues, readiness issues, and retention issues. Without addressing them all, we will struggle with recruitment and retention. I thank you for this opportunity to testify and look forward to any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Congressman Carbajal. I think we're making some progress on childcare. We got more work to do. I'm going by memory. I think we've gone from 65% Manny to about 83% Manny. But we have to, and they've done this by making it more competitive to work on base. So we're very competitive with the off base facilities. But we have some ideas in this panel how we can further attract more workers. So we're going to incorporate this in the plan. But I want to thank you for your comments.
Thank you. My name was misspelled, so I hope that doesn't bode well for the product that's going to come out of this wonderful committee.
Is that on your name tag? Oh, I thought maybe I just didn't know it all this time. So I appreciate both of your testimony. Very much needed. I was going to yield to the ranking member and see if you have any questions.
No, I don't have any questions other than to concur with you guys in terms of where our priorities ought to be, whether it's with pay or benefits or the focus on the family. I think those are all things that would have certainly affected my choices when I was a young officer and certainly would affect choices of everybody who's active duty today. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. One thing we've learned, 18 years ago, the pay scales were right-sized. And since then, we've been doing across-the-board pay raises, which over time means the junior enlisted and the senior, that pay grows farther apart. I do think it's time that we fix that. So I get to both of your comments.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just
Yes.
the pay raise in the NDA, just to put that comment in perspective for an E1, E2, the last NDA, I forget the percentage, six something, seven something, comes out to about $75 a month after taxes. So that, to put that point in perspective, the officers are certainly getting a bigger chunk of change, but the junior enlisted are getting effectively another bag of gas if they're stationed in California. So it's really, the disparity there is real. So appreciate you making that observation.
I want to thank some of our senior enlisted leaders who brought this to our attention about a year ago. And they explained it just the way you all did. So our senior enlisted leadership of our services are looking out for the troops, and I'm grateful to them. So I'm going to close, but Chrissy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I yield back to you.
So service members need and deserve these basic quality of life issues to be addressed so they can focus solely on their mission. I want to thank each of our witnesses for their perspective, valuable insights. I look forward to working in a bipartisan manner to address these challenges, and we will. Thanks.